Yarn Hub. When Me-262s battled Mustangs over Germany.
It's April 1945.
Ooh, right at the end of World War II. Okay.
Skies over Germany, a battle is underway. This is not just a battle between Axis and Allies, but it's also a clash of the technology of the age. In one corner is the pinnacle of the established technology of piston engines and propellers, the P-51D Mustang. Powered by a
Oh,
Packard Merlin engine, it had a top speed of 440 miles per hour.
that's
And with
quite
its external
fast.
tanks, it has the range and capacity to
The external tank over there looked yeah, this thing looks very much like um, what are those fire bombs in War Thunder? The structure is very much like the fire bombs. But I guess it was one and the same thing, like in terms of the external structure. I don't think in-game P-51s have fuel tanks in War Thunder. But interesting structure though for a fuel tank. Very non-fuel structure like for modern times. Nowadays they look very different.
and capacity to escort American bombers all the way to Berlin and back. In the training manual called the Long Reach, it said, "Where the bombers go to bomb, the fighters go to protect them." In the other corner, the Germans have produced the technological marvel that is the Me-262.
Ooh,
This is the dawn
the
of
first jet engine fighter.
the jet age, and the twin-engined 262 is the Luftwaffe's answer to the continuous bombing raids over the skies of Germany. The 262 could reach well over 600 miles per hour in a dive and could
That's also very fast. Also interesting how he said inner dive specifically. That specification is important. Because, yeah, the 262 was quite fast. But compared to modern, it wasn't that much faster than the P-51. For a P-51, it was quite fast.
climb at an incredible 10 meters per second. General Major Adolf Gallen described the experience as, "It felt as if angels were pushing." Armed with four 30mm cannons and up to 24 rockets, it also had the destructive power needed to wreak havoc.
That is very powerful armament for a 1945 fighter. Well, I can't really say fighter jet because that was the first fighter jet. But for a 1945 dogfighting aircraft, that's good. That's a good punch of power.
In the heavens. Coming in on a fast dive, they could inflict their firepower on the bombers and get away before the escorting fighters even had a chance to intercept. If the P-51s did intercept, they were forced to drop their external fuel tanks to give them a chance. This meant that, irrespective of the outcome of the chase, with minimal fuel, the P-51s would be forced to turn for home, leaving the bombers undefended for the Germans to pick off. But from
Oh, so it was a uphill battle for the P-51 versus the Me-262. Okay, that's interesting. So whoever turns to engage either won't come back to so whoever turns to engage definitely doesn't come back to escort. But they either they get home safe or they don't even have enough fuel for that by the time they're done fighting. All of these are if they win the dogfight or they survive the dogfight. Then they either get to go back home or they have to land anywhere amongst combat territory or enemy territory or crash or jump out of the plane because ejection seats weren't the thing yet.
1944, it was stated that the first duty of the 8th Air Force fighters was no longer to bring the bombers back alive, but instead was to destroy German fighters. This led the P-51s to roam more offensively, which also led to some incredible engagements of P-51s versus Me-262s.
Oh,
When,
that's
on April
interesting.
10, 1945, over 1,200 bombers and 900 fighters from the 8th Air Force were over Germany, Lieutenant Walter Hagener was in one of two Me-262s from JG-7 sent to intercept. He describes the engagement as follows. "We received no instructions from the ground when airborne. Our task was merely to engage bombers over Berlin. Once above cloud at about 5,000 meters, I could see the bomber formation clearly at about 6,000 meters. I was flying about 550 kilometers per hour in a slight climb after them. In 3 to 4 minutes, we would be with the bombers. Then,
Mm-hmm.
as an experienced fighter pilot, I had the old tingling in the back of the neck feeling that perhaps enemy fighters were about. I had a good look around, and in front and above, I saw 6 Mustangs passing above me from almost head on. At first, I thought they had not seen me, and so
That was possible. Like you could just miss them back in the day because there's no radar, no nothing. You could be going at each other, and the person who's higher up could potentially miss the person who's down below because like you don't get to see down. You have wings covering your both sides, looking down, and like there's no other way to look down. You have to either tilt your plane a bit and look down through the side, or you have to look in front slightly down for those contrails behind those planes. If you see any of those or any kind of movement, so you have to catch them pretty early. Usually, like you could miss them. I'm sure there was methods of checking straight below you, but you could very easily miss them back in the day.
I continued on. But just to be on the safe side, I glanced back one more. And it was a good thing for me that I did, because at that moment I saw the Mustangs diving down
Oh, so the Mustangs had seen the Me-262s. They were just climbing to get in the perfect position behind them, have the high ground.
curving round onto the pair of us. With the speed of their dive and the speed we had lost because of our climb, they stood a good chance catching us. Then they opened fire and Tracer began to flash disconcertingly close to our aircraft. I opened my throttle fully and put my nose down a little to increase my own
Okay.
speed. And
So at this point, he's diving straight out. He's not really going for the bombing run, which, well, makes sense. You have to prioritize your life and the aircraft you're flying in.
resolved to outrun the enemy fighters. I did not attempt to throw them off of their aim. I knew the moment I turned, my speed would fall, and then they would have me. I told the Feldwebel on my left to keep going, but obviously he became scared because I noticed him weaving from side to side. Then he turned away to the left. It was just what
No, don't turn. Okay, yeah, well, the way dogfighting works is, well, when you're really close, like these distances, if you turn and if you're flying, like if you moved away from your position like 50 meters, the guy behind you, if he's in the perfect place, he just needs to turn his nose like a little bit and his nose is right on you. You're kind of guiding the person behind you. So you make it easy for the person behind you if you're not too close. You have to be very close to turn and for that to help you. Otherwise, you're just making it easy for the enemy, like we'll see over here.
the Mustang pilots wanted, and in no time they had broken off from me and were on to him. His aircraft received several hits, and I saw it go down and crash. My companion was unable to bail out. I kept an eye
No,
on the enemy
damn.
fighters at 4,000 meters and watched them reform and turn around to fly west.
Like right now, they're making the German Air Force look really nice because there's no human angle to the American one in this video. But that's very smart of the, well, very, very skilled, experienced, trained of behavior of the American pilots.
Westwards for home. Feeling vengeful, I decided
That does actually, sorry for the interruption, but that does say a little bit about the status of like training and logistics and those human aspects of the late war period. But like not just the technology made a difference. Like, because here clearly the Germans have better technology, but the pilot training and in the investing in the human being also makes a lot of difference. From the looks of it, I personally, is my opinion, I feel like the pilot who turned wasn't that experienced. He was a very fresh pilot. And the P-51 pilots look extremely experienced by the way they are behaving, the way they are conducting the combat.
to have a go at them. I rapidly closed in on them from behind, but at a range of about 500 meters, the Mustang leader started rocking his wings, and I knew that I had been seen. If I continued, I knew that the enemy fighters would probably split up into two and curve round from either side onto my tail. So I resolved to strike first. I loosed off all 24 of the R4M rockets under my wings, straight at the enemy fighters, and I was very lucky. I hit two of them, and they went down, out of control. This time,
Oh wow, that is very lucky. Yeah, the unlike video games, making shots like that in real life is not anywhere near as easy, especially with rockets. Those, like, even when designed for air-to-air combat, yes, there were some rockets for air-to-air combat. It's still more difficult to hit a target with a rocket than with a bullet, since they're much heavier. And sure, they are propelled, but I get the sense that they would also have a like what do you call those? They would drop faster than bullets.
I had plenty of speed and had little trouble in avoiding the fire from their companions. Almost out of fuel coming into land at Curtin Airfield, he was targeted again by P-51s. Forced to put his plane in a tight curving approach, the Mustang scattered, assuming he was coming in for an attack. He managed to quickly put the bird down before the Mustangs started strafing the airfield. The end of his account on that day states, "Fortunately for me, the flak defenses were still on their toes, and I was not hit." By early May 1945, the Allies owned the skies, and the last few Me-262s sat waiting on the runways, awaiting capture from the Allied ground troops, their technology to be studied and used in the upcoming Cold War.
Oh, damn, that's interesting that that was at the very end of the war. Like by May, if the Allies have taken control of the air, that pretty much means the war is more or less done. You just need to work on ground territory control and capture and control. The actual combat of, like, there's no question who's gonna win now. Interesting. Well, also interesting that he survived. Goes to say, regardless of what your um, leaning is in terms of thoughts, skill and training goes a long way. Because we just saw in this video a perfect example of two very different thoughts, but both extremely skilled. And then we also saw what happens when you're not focused and skilled, and when you don't trust your experience. Really good video. Thank you, Yanhab.